Well, Roberts, to start off, thank you so much for running for town council.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, and we want to get to know you a little bit. So if you could give us a little brief history about who Robert is, and then what motivated you to run for Okotoks Council.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to. So I'm a resident of Okotoks since early 2011. I moved my family here from moved it to basically the far south of Alberta. We consider it the southern location. We moved from Fort McMurray. We currently reside in the beautiful and established community of Crystal Shores. My career background basically includes operations, maintenance, and various technical roles within the Alberta oil and gas sector for the last 35 years. And I'm truly proud of the historical accomplishments and creation of opportunities for Albertans during that time. Prior to submitting my intent to run for councillor, my path was leading me into aerial survey operations utilizing mid-sized remote piloted aircraft systems, or drones for short, as everybody knows them, right? And obviously entering politics for me is a significant pivot, going from trades to politics. Although I feel at this time it's necessary and timely for my family and the community. My motivation stems from my personal experience and recognition that an erosion of community core values has occurred since 2021 that affects affordability for citizens and businesses, rapid growth that exceeds the capacity of current infrastructure, and integrity of the relationship between elected representatives, citizens, and businesses alike.
Okay. So what is your vision? No doubt you touched on that in your answer there, but what is your vision for Okotoks over the next 4 years? And what role do you see yourself playing in helping achieve that vision?
Yeah, just to expand on the introduction. So my vision is basically building a community that quantifiably demonstrates that it values and promotes the citizens and businesses by making affordability a key metric of successful governance. Uh, with my various technical background in regards to asset performance management, or APM for short, is the acronym I'll use, has taught me that a strong foundation is essential and required to successfully manage assets, including services. This can be utilized for town services. I personally would like to see the town of Okotoks adopt certain principles of APM to fully comprehend essential versus non-essential, effective prioritization, and manage a budget that conforms to the tested and trusted industry accepted practices. As a former data analytics modeler within the APM realm, I see an opportunity to include elements of AI to refine property tax formulas to result in fair and accurate values versus the current mass appraisal method, making affordability achievable. Ultimately, balancing reasonable taxation while improving essential services. I would like to see mindful development applied, incorporating the community core values that attracted people to move in and reside to Okotoks and for the future, such as twinning provisions that run parallel to 32nd Street, as an example. I would like to see a community that fosters unity, freedom of debate, encouraging discourse, protection of privacy and rights, a safe community in all aspects, and remain in harmony with nature and natural surroundings. I also believe it is important to plan for mitigating the consequences of unforeseen emergencies or asset failures by building a reserved fund versus relying on an increasing debt capacity to effectively return essential services and assets to a functional state in a timely manner.
Right on. In your view, what are the top 2 or 3 issues facing Okotoks right now, and how would you approach them if you were elected?
I do have three that I consider core. So affordability is number one. The other I would consider including in that list is integrity. These are huge words, right? That define. There's a lot of things that fit underneath these umbrellas. The third one is actually community core values. So if I can expand on the affordability aspect for a minute. It's a common concern that I share with citizens of Okotoks is the rising cost of living connected to municipal decisions and governance. For my own home, as an example, this includes a 26% increase in property taxes since 2021. It includes a 54% increase in utility access fees for gas and electricity since 2021. I haven't even shared the water and sewer rates of change. My goal would be to incorporate best industry practices to reduce the taxpayer net costs, adopt APM, and risk management practices to eliminate the underlying root cause of unprecedented expenses and budget increases. I would like to see property tax credits to encourage multi-generational occupancy, thus providing our seniors another option that includes an environment conducive to social interactions and connections to family. And as for the water and waste billing formula, I envision census data of home occupancy can be factored into the water bill tier formula that doesn't favor a low occupancy versus higher occupancy dwelling. The current formula, to me, essentially discourages full occupancy of residential homes in Okotoks and promotes an empty nester environment. As far as the integrity aspect of it goes, basically lack of true transparency of decisions, planning and development, a citizen engagement that is efficient enough to sift out all the concerns via alternative and creative methods. You know, when we sit in large populated venues, for instance, some people are quite reluctant to share their concerns. So I think we need to be creative in regards to sift out those concerns and deal with them, address them. We need to be approachable, engage more effectively and meaningfully with the community's citizens and businesses, advocate for freedom of debate, open discourse, provide feedback or coaching for success of individual citizens or groups. And most importantly, be a representative of the citizens and not of a theoretical concept or external organization. An example of this is the Alberta Municipalities and Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I would review the goals and strategy adopted within the Town of Okotoks Climate Action Plan and determine associated accurate budget forecasts for full transparency and review by the community. Potential referendum item considering the subjective nature and associated cost estimates. And then as far as community core values go, these include our small town look and feel, recreational infrastructure, mindful development, harmony with the environment, a healthy and connected social environment, and planning responsibly for the future. Applying mindful development to ensure that infrastructure keeps pace with future development while balancing and addressing citizen concerns. An example is the current swimming facilities that are currently overwhelmed with demand and will likely see increasing demand as foothills in Calgary develop further. I would support adequate recreational facilities, the expansion of, if that's the case, to meet this demand and for future population growth. Also applying a registration tier system to ensure citizens of Okotoks have first dibs to community recreational programs, then expanding to foothills prior to opening the registration to Calgary and other non-Okotoks residents.
Okay, I'm just looking at question number 4, and I think you got that one covered in there because the question is, Okotoks continues to face challenges around growth, housing, and infrastructure. How do you believe the town should balance development with maintaining its character and livability? I certainly like what you said about the residents of Okotoks getting first dibs. That's for sure. Do you feel that you covered that question, or is there other things you want to cover in question number 4?
There's definitely a couple other things, Carlin. So an analogy I like to use is based on the 1989 movie Field of Dreams, where the mantra, build it and they will come. And I think that can also apply to community growth. So it starts with a conceptual design that aligns with community core values and prudent financial choices, such as simultaneously building the necessary infrastructure to facilitate the increasing traffic flows of vehicles and people alike. And it could be, it could be simultaneous. It could be built, just in time. I'm used to that from the industry, for instance, for part selection and planning and scheduling. It's just in time is also another alternative. But having the necessary infrastructure developed and ready when that population increase actually occurs, as opposed to afterwards, dealing with it after. So planning to catch up later it's simply irresponsible and simply poor project management, in my opinion. The core values that I refer to that relate to growth and development include incorporating green spaces of interconnecting paths and parks that promote outdoor activities and ultimately health of body and mind. This has been something that, as far as I'm concerned, as a citizen of Okotoks, is a it's a fundamental core strength, I believe, of Okotoks, the amount of green space that they have in comparison to other municipalities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd also, retaining the visual aspects of that small town, look and feel, and incredible vistas that Okotoks is known for. The mindful zoning for future growth and having the foresight similar to 32nd Street. I believe that they did the same thing with the recent upgrade on the road heading west, where they developed a section of land, so they made provisions, so eventually it can be twinned as well.
Mm-hmm.
I find very mindful in regards to development projects.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Many residents want more transparency and involvement in decision making. How would you ensure residents' voices are heard and represented?
This is a good one, and it's close and it's personal. So number one, I would say returning phone call messages is a good place to start. This is based on my own experiences. Advocating for the individual or small group citizen-initiated meetings, participating in constructive debate, being an active listener to those that disagree and those that agree. Following up with the actions and concerns, providing feedback and coaching as required, being empathetic to the concerns of citizens, and having the courage and fortitude to respond in a timely manner. Continuing the process of promoting community involvement in various boards. However, and this is important, being transparent about the selection process and providing direct feedback to the unsuccessful candidates on how they can improve. These are volunteer positions. Normal industry practices don't apply. We need to really look out for the citizens and the people that apply, and the people that are, courageous enough to put their name into the hat and get involved. They need some positive feedback, and they need to know how they can improve.
Town council works as a team and also with Foothills County and the province. How would your approach regarding collaboration and compromise to get results for Okotoks be handled?
Yeah, I feel collaboration in general is important. Obviously, as I recognize that I'm certainly not a subject matter expert on many topics, thus inherently rely on the education and guidance, right, as provided by those that possess that expertise, practical and or theoretical. As far as I look at certificates on the wall, if they don't have that practical experience, if they're not competent in that, that skill, then really it's just a piece of paper on the wall. It's a nice separation.
Mm-hmm.
So this does not imply that collaboration would trump my commitment, though, to act as an elected representative of the citizens, as I feel sources external of Okotoks are there for guidance only. I certainly see value in collaborating with the Foothills County and the province, as synergies obviously exist and have a high probability to result in positive changes and benefits to the community. An obvious metric to acknowledge with regards to collaboration is the success demonstrated with the Foothills landfill and continued improvements to protect the environment.
Okay. If residents remember just one thing about you after listening to this conversation, what should it be, Robert?
My intention for running for councillor in Okotoks is to ensure Okotoks governance refocuses on the key foundational principles of integrity, affordability, health, and traditional values of the community. I'm committed to be a strong voice for our community, grounded in ethics, leveraging my skills and experience to work with responsibly, preparing Okotoks for the future.
Right on, Robert. You certainly said a lot, and some of it, I'll be honest, you're talking way over my head. But when it does come down to Okotoks, like, can you give me is there examples of lack of transparency that you feel that the council or the leadership of the town is giving you? Is it in not returning the phone call, or is it just in the numbers? Is it budgeting? What is it?
Yeah, it's actually far bigger than that. So I did review the budget forecast, and this is long-term budget forecast in regards to the strategic leadership priorities. And I do find those rather concerning because it tends to point towards finding creatively additional sources of revenue. So additional sources of revenue basically equates to more taxation, which affects affordability. When I throw out these words, these terms of affordability, integrity, health, traditional values, there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it. Those are just basically the starting points. You look at a pyramid structure, for instance, you look at integrity, what fits underneath integrity? It's ethics, it's transparency, it's community engagement, it's all of that. So if I was to give an example of the largest elephant in the room that I can think of, it's basically the climate action plan that's currently approved, currently committed to, without actually a forecasted budget. It's something that's not quantifiable. My understanding, it's very subjective in regards to what the actual output's going to be. And when we're talking costs, we're talking significant costs. We're talking millions and millions of dollars towards this. We have essential infrastructure, such as water sourcing, obviously has been a huge issue for a long time. We could have dealt with it years ago when the population cap was lifted. I think that was part of it. And then potentially we could have, reduced the amount of expansion until we actually had the infrastructure in place. So these are all examples of transparency and lack of transparency by the current governance. This is not the small items. There are small items, and that was my example in regards to the phone call, returning phone calls, because that's the root of citizen engagement. If you're not courageous enough to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that potentially has a valid concern that you do not necessarily agree with, that's a failure of the system.
Sure. So when you're talking about the climate action plan, like what things are you hearing? What with the millions of dollars, like what kind of things are they putting the money?
Yeah, so the climate action plan, if we go back to the Drake Landing solar project, for instance, right?
2007.
Yeah, and how that's identified, it's all part of the climate action plan. I mean, it does affect the climate, right? And that's the intention. That is the ultimate goal. And look at where we are now. We basically pressed the reset, gone back to traditional methods of heating homes, and who pays? Who's the loser in this, right? It's the tax. Ultimately, the taxpayer. If a development is done, the developer will up. So things like that. So how do you justify a climate action plan based on the same goals that, number one? So I come from a background of numbers. Everything is quantifiable, right? We're not talking subjective. We're not talking appeal factor. We're not talking virtue signaling. We're talking actual numbers. So I talk actual numbers. So if I can't quantify it, and if it's subjective, now there's that second level of attesting the actual success of a project. The only success I could see from Drake Landing was the success that we've tested it on unfortunately, a rather large scale, but it definitely could have been done in a smaller scale, and attest, see what the results are, see what you can quantify from it, and from that, develop additional actions. But don't jump in the deep end of the pool with a commitment based on subjective goals. That's my concern.
Right. And obviously, my concern is we jump into something and in 20 years it's obsolete. Right. Like, like you use that Drake Landing as an example. We get going on this climate action plan. We want to be ahead of the game. We want to, get on the news cycles through nationwide, North American wide, as to look what this community is doing. And you end up in the end losing millions of dollars. So no, it's very fascinating. Obviously, sustainability is something that I think we all want. We all want to be concerned about our environment and how we're treating our water and being careful as to how much water we're using and all those things. I don't think anybody would necessarily argue that. We live in we got to be careful with our earth, but we also got to be careful with our money as well.
Yeah. The fundamental goal of the climate action plan is emission reduction of CO2. There's a lot more contaminants. There's a lot more toxins that enter our watersheds that we should be concerned about. We shouldn't be concerned about the development that's occurring on, by the Dog Stadium, for instance. That needs to be a sulfur pile. So there's potential there of what exactly have we done in regards to reclamation of the land prior to development. So things like this need to be looked at. It goes well above and beyond CO2 as far as our climate plan and what we're responsible for the earth, right? For sustaining the community and sustaining our water source. things that are really, really important and things that you can actually physically see, for instance, would be
Hmm.
very helpful as well. But
Hmm. I just want to jump around here a little bit. You mentioned new communities. Do you feel that the new communities that are being put in right now are missing the green spaces like they used to put in?
I noticed with Weatherland, so I'm a cyclist. I'm with the Highwood Cycling Club, and I haven't been very active actually ever since the pandemic, but I do still cycle the trails around here. And sorry, I do notice that there is they have included green spaces. They have included actually, which I really like, is the little cycle maintenance stop, right? It has the tools and everything mounted. And I think that there's maybe two or three in town like that, possibly more. But it's a nice quality tool. So great for a pit stop if you're on a bike and your chain breaks or something, but
Hmm.
or you get a flat tire. But what I do see from development is that they have included this green space, and kudos to them for keeping that up. I'm definitely in favor of it. I'm in favor of green spaces. I'm in favor of trees. I think that's all part of the true climate action plan that we should be committed to.
Hmm. But you did also mention full occupancy of current buildings. Do you know what I mean? Like you mentioned something about empty nesters and all those things as
I
well.
Yeah, yeah. I want to be careful there. I'm not advocating for full occupancy of homes because I know that's potentially that's a dangerous precedent. I don't want to see rental accommodations next door or in various places without the right controls in place.
Hmm.
What I'm advocating for is multi-generational. So
Mm.
extended families, seniors living at home. I think that that could deal with a lot of issues right now because seniors housing, the amount of seniors housing is definitely an issue for the town of Okotoks. Whether or not that's incorporated into new development or not, I hadn't heard that, but I have definitely heard the concerns from the folks in the seniors lodges, the accommodations that are there now, that seniors living is definitely a concern.
Yeah, and I do think yeah, like I'm a realtor, show lots of houses. Yesterday I was showing houses out in Langdon actually. And the amount of houses that are starting to be built for that multi-generational home, I think I think they may say multi-generational, but I think there's going to be, basement suites, but they are also on the main floor. If it's two-story, they're putting a full bath on the main floor and a bedroom on the main floor as well. Not a big bedroom, but big enough that you could bring your mom or your dad in when they are elderly and living alone, right?
Yeah, we're actually considering the same thing here. So yeah, just to bring them closer to these services. So Calgary, for instance, right next to us, right, the huge metropolis with all the services you can imagine as far as health and the diagnostics that's required, right next door, 10 minutes away. So it's an ideal environment, I think, for our
Right.
seniors.
Right. Can we talk a little bit about affordable housing and what that means to you? Because you mentioned that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Affordable housing is essentially it all relates basically to property tax, to looking at citizens and businesses as a source of revenue, which I've seen in the in the financial plans and the budget reviews. Um, Basically, they're categorizing us as revenue sources. Um, so affordability, how can we affect affordability from a municipal standpoint? It's basically let's look at the tax levy, right? Let's look at the utility access fees, what we can do better there. And I definitely know that there's room for improvement in regards to property assessments. I've gone through the process of attempting to get my property assessment corrected and got nowhere. There is because my understanding and my belief is that there's definitely a bias towards not decreasing these estimates, these assessment values, because it correlates directly to the property tax levy.
Hmm.
Direct, 100%. And I can say that because essentially based on my property, so I did the assessment on my property to read the absolute and accurate numbers, deadly accurate numbers, on that there's a clear correlation between tax assessment of your property and property tax levy. In addition to that, obviously we have the utility access fees, which actually have gone up much higher because percentage-wise, because there's less focus on it, right? It's a lesser value than your property levy. Your property levy is in the thousands. Your utility annual bill might be close to 500, 600. So not as much focus, but it still affects the entire property tax ratio. And then we talk about the utility, water, and sewer. What I what I would advocate for is basically utilizing the census that's upcoming. I
Mhm.
believe that they have a census plan for next year, I think, or the year after. So that would give us an identification of the population, the occupancy levels within dwellings, and I think really that should be factored in. So why would a multi-nester never hit like tier two, never hit tier three, unless of course they're watering their lawn? Uh,
Just wait. Just stop. Can you hear me? I just lost you. I lost the audio. There we go. Are we back now? I think I can hear you. I can't hear you. I heard you for a second. I heard your Bluetooth. There we go. I think we're back now. Can you hear me? Can't hear me? Okay. Oh, can you hear me now?
sure,
I can hear you.
just a sec.
Can you hear me?
So I can't seem to change my settings as far as my speaker goes.
Yeah, but can you hear me okay?
I can't hear you
You
currently,
can't. Okay.
and it basically the default for the speakers is now my microphone, but and it's grayed out, so I can't select it and I can't change it back to the one. Essentially, my battery operated speaker timed out. It has a habit of doing this, unfortunately.
Hmm.
It timed out and basically disconnected, and then it defaulted to my Yeti speaker. I'm not sure how I can change that or how I can recover from that. To just hearing and no, yeah, the change speaker. Right, it's headphone. It's a earphone. Hello.
I can hear you.
Okay,
Awesome.
got you back.
Okay. Well, we just kept her rolling. Do you remember what you were saying?
No, I don't.
Um, Talking about we
Multi-generational formula for water
y- yes, you were talking about
census.
the people living in not watering their lawns, whatever. Um,
Yeah,
shouldn't have
yeah.
to.
Okay, okay. So we can go back to that. All right. So part of my platform and part of my desire in regards to being counselor is to look at the water sewer formula that's currently used, um, incorporating the census data as far as occupancy of dwellings go. And like I mentioned, I'm a promoter of multi-generational housing. So having elderly, members of your family stay with you. But with that being said, what's also an effective method, I think, of this, because you don't want to be penalized because grandma's staying with you and she's using up additional water. And now you're in tier three because you have a full household with an additional body. And I think that's just fundamentally unfair and really does not support the initiative of the housing issue that's currently within Okotoks.
Hmm.
But if we can fill up the rooms inside the residential dwellings, especially with like a family with and multi-generational, is what I refer to it as, we would be better off. But as sort of a tax incentive, and I wouldn't maybe not use it as a tax incentive because I don't want it to be separated or segregated from the normal practice. I think really the formula needs to be revamped for the water sewer bill, incorporate the level of occupancy within the household. So it
Well,
doesn't nesters and it promotes a full house.
yeah, and I think you're right. Like, I think the formula does need to be changed. Even look at the education system, and I do think that in Calgary, like that's where the education system's in a little bit of trouble because there are in some communities, especially the new Canadians, the new people that are coming to Canada, are filling up those houses quite a bit with a lot more people than us. Uh, uh, Typical people that have been born and raised in Canada. We don't fill homes like the newcomers do. They do it basically out of necessity. But you have this tax base coming from a house, and it's just based on a house, not based on the amount of people coming from that house. And that's a very hard thing to juggle. And I think that's why I know nobody's talking about it, but you look at the education system and the struggles they're having right now potentially are from the way that we're doing our calculations on taxes.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely express to approach it carefully though, because I do come from a community of Fort McMurray where, there was a large construction projects that were occurring. There was a lot of people that basically transients to the community that occupied, bedrooms inside houses. And it was a complete disaster. It was out of control. There was no mindful, bylaws or development in regards to approving additional uh, occupancy within houses or
Hmm.
additional development. People were parking on people's lawns, right, in front of the house, and it was just a complete disaster. And I wouldn't want to see something like that happen with no
No, for sure. Robert, what's something you can leave us with? Something about you, why you feel you are the right person to lead the next 4 years on council.
Yeah, so number one, I'm definitely not a polished politician at all. I've mostly been a T4, so I'm basically one of you, right? I'm one of the citizens, one of the normal taxpayers that are out there. And my approach to this is, like I mentioned, it's numbers, it's quantified, it's not subjective. So if you really want to know the truth, I'm the person that can provide it. I did hold an auditor position as well prior to retirement. So I do know numbers, and I am known for that. My ethics is very, very strong. The integrity of the information that I provide is accurate. I would say deadly accurate in most cases. But again, then I'm also, I'm willing to be humbled if I needed to correct, and I'm willing to accept that. And that's just my character, my nature. But this is definitely a significant pivot for me to go from, running. So I'm also looking after two small businesses since I've retired. One's in agriculture, and it's actually not here; it's further up north. And then I do have a maintenance, sort of a maintenance technical solutions provision that I've had since 21.
Mhm.
So that's my subject matter expertise in regards to APM or asset performance management and how it can
Mhm.
apply towards a community like the town of Okotoks to, number one, reduce expenses, really look at that budget, really focus on priorities, and really, communicate well with the community at large.
Right on. Robert, thank you. Thank you for throwing your name in the hat to run. It's putting yourself out there to do that and to potentially lead this town. So we thank you for it because really it is a volunteer position, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely is. Yeah.
So Robert, thank you. If we'll look forward to talking to you in the future.
Okay. Thanks for the support.
Awesome. Thank you.